Chapter 1 of Book 4 of Topics by Aristotle, translated by Octavius Owen. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Jeffrey Edwards. Chapter 1 of Topics relative to genus. Our attention must now be directed to what appertains to genus and property, and these are the elements of such as belong to definitions, but about them there is seldom a consideration by disputants. If then it should be laid down that there is a genus of any certain thing, we must first have respect to all things allied to what is spoken, whether it is not predicated of something, as is the case with accident, as if good is assumed as the genus of pleasure, we must see whether a certain pleasure is not good, for if this happens, it is clear that good is not the genus of pleasure, since genus is predicated of all things under the same species. Next, whether it is not predicated in answer to the question what a thing is, but as accident, as whiteness of snow, or what is moved by itself of the soul. For neither is snow the same thing as whiteness, wherefore whiteness is not the genus of snow, nor is the soul the same as what is moved, but it is accidental to it to be moved, as also it frequently happens to an animal to walk and to be walking. Moreover, the being moved is not a certain thing, but appears to signify something active or passive. Likewise also whiteness, for it does not discover what snow is, but what kind of thing it is. Hence neither of these is predicated in reply to the question what a thing is. Notwithstanding, we must especially have regard to the definition of accident, if it concurs with the stated genus, as also in what has just now been mentioned, for the same thing may possibly move and not move itself, likewise also may be white and not white, so that neither of these is genus, but accident, since we denominate that accident which possibly may and may not be present with a certain thing. Further, whether the genus and the species be not in the same division, but the one essence and the other quality, or the one relative but the other quality. For instance, snow is essence, also a swan, yet whiteness is not essence, but quality, so that whiteness is neither the genus of snow, nor of a swan. Again, science is of the number of relatives, but good and beautiful are each a quality, hence neither the good nor the beautiful is the genus of science, since the genera of relatives must necessarily themselves also be relatives, as in the instance of the double, for the multiple being the genus of the double is itself of the number of relatives. To speak universally, genus must be under the same division with species, for if the species be essence, the genus also is, and if the species be a quality, the genus also is some quality, as if whiteness is a certain quality, so also is colour, and likewise in other cases. Further, we must examine whether it is necessary or contingent that genus partake of that which was laid down in genus, and the definition of partaking is to receive the definition of what is participated. Now, it is evident that species partake of genera, but not genera of species, since the species accepts the definition of genus, but not genus that of the species. Wherefore, we must observe whether the proposed genus partakes or can partake of species, as if some one should declare that there is a certain genus of being, or of the one, for the genus will happen to partake of the species, since being and the one are predicated of all entities, so that their definition is predicated also. Besides, whether the assigned species is truly predicated of a certain thing, but not the genus, as if being, or the object of science is laid down as the genus of what is the object of opinion, for the object of opinion will be predicated of nonentity, since many nonentities are the objects of opinion. Still, that being, or the object of science, is not predicated of nonentity is evident, wherefore neither being nor the object of science is the genus of the object of opinion, as of what species is predicated, genus must also of necessity be predicated. Again, whether what is placed in the genus can possibly partake of no species, since it is impossible that what partakes of no species should partake of genus, unless it should be one of those species according to the first division, for these alone partake of genus. If then motion be assumed as the genus of pleasure, we must see whether pleasure be not production, nor alteration, nor any one of the other assigned motions, for it is palpable that it partakes of no species, wherefore neither of the genus, since it is necessary that the participant of the genus should also be participant of some species, so that pleasure can neither be a species of motion, nor an individual, neither among those which are under a species of motion, for individuals partake also of genus and species, as a certain man participates both of man and of animal. Besides, whether what is placed in genus is of wider extension than the genus, as the subject of opinion than entity, since both entity and nonentity are objects of opinion, wherefore the object of opinion will not be a species of entity, as the genus is always more widely extended than the species. Again, whether the species and the genus are predicated of an equal number of things, as if amongst those which are consequent to all, one should be placed as species, but the other as genus, as being, and the one, for being and the one are consequent to everything, so that neither is the genus of the other, since they are predicated of an equal number. Likewise also, if the first and the principal be placed one upon the other, since the principal is what is first, and what is first is principal, so that either both stated are the same, or neither is the genus of the other. Still, the element relative to all such is, that the genus is of wider extension than the species and the difference, for difference also is predicated of fewer things than genus. Also, examine whether what has been mentioned be not, or appear not to be, the genus of some one of those things which do not differ in species. The supporter of the argument, however, will see whether it is the genus of one of these, for there is the same genus of all things not different in species. If then it be shown to be the genus of one, it is evidently that of all, and if not of one, evidently not of any, as if someone admitting that there are indivisible lines should say that their genus is indivisible, for what has been stated is not the genus of lines admitting division, as they are not specifically different, for all straight lines do not specifically differ from each other. Chapter 2. Of topics relative to genus, species, and difference. Consider also whether there is any other genus of the assigned species, which neither comprehends the assigned genus, nor is under it, as if some one should assert science to be the genus of justice, since virtue also is genus, and neither of these genera comprehends the other, so that science would not be the genus of justice, for apparently when one species is under two genera, one is comprehended under the other. This nevertheless is doubtful in some cases, for to some prudence seems both virtue and science, and neither of the genera to be comprehended under the other, yet it is not admitted by all that prudence is science. If then any one admitted the statement to be true, yet it will appear necessary that genera of the same thing should be either subaltern, or both under the same genus, just as it happens in virtue and science, for both are under the same genus, since each of them is habit and disposition. We must see therefore whether neither of them is present with the assigned genus, for if they are neither subaltern genera, nor both under the same genus, what is assigned will not be a genus. We must observe too the genus of the assigned genus, and so always the superior genus, whether all things are predicated of the species, and whether they are so in reply to what a thing is. For all superior genera must be predicated of species in respect to what a thing is. If then there is anywhere a discrepancy, what is assigned is evidently not the genus. Again, whether the genus partakes of the species, either itself, or any of the superior genera, as the superior genus partakes of none of the inferior, the subverter must use what we have said. But for the supporter it will be sufficient if the proposed genus is admitted present with the species. But it is doubtful whether it is present with genus to show that some one of the superior genera is predicated of species, in reference to what a thing is. For if one thing is predicated in reference to what a thing is, all, both above and below this, if they are predicated of species, will be so predicated in reference to what a thing is, so that the assigned genus also is predicated in reference to the same. But that if one is predicated in reference to what a thing is, all the rest will be so, if they are predicated, must be assumed from induction. Nevertheless, if it is doubted whether the assigned genus is simply inherent, it is not enough to show that any of the superior genera is predicated of species in respect to what a thing is. E.g., if some one gave lation as the genus of walking, it is not sufficient to show that walking is motion, in order to prove that it is lation, since there are other motions also, but we must prove besides that walking partakes of none of those in the same division, except lation. For it is necessary that the participant of genus should also participate of some one species, according to the first division. If then walking neither partakes of increase, nor of diminution, nor of the other motions, it clearly partakes of lation, so that lation would be the genus of walking. Again, in those where the assigned species is predicated as genus, observe whether the assigned genus also is predicated of the same things of which species is, in reference to what a thing is. Likewise, whether all those things which are above the genus, for if there is any discrepancy, what is assigned is evidently not genus, as, if it were genus, all things above this, and the very thing itself, would be predicated in reference to what a thing is, of which things species also is predicated in respect of the same. Now, this is useful to the subverter, if the genus is not predicated in respect to what a thing is, of which thing species also is predicated, but to the confirmer it is useful, if it is predicated in the question, what a thing is. For both the genus and the species will happen to be predicated of the same, in respect to what a thing is, so that the same thing is under two genera. Wherefore the genera are necessarily subaltern. If then what we wish to constitute genus is shown not to be under species, species will be evidently under it, so that it will have been proved that this is genus. Examine moreover the definitions of the genera, whether they suit the assigned species, and the participants of the species, since it is necessary that the definitions of the genera should be predicated of the species, and of what partakes of the species, so that if there is anywhere a discrepancy, it is manifest that genus is not what has been assigned. Again, whether a person has given the difference as a genus must be looked to, for instance, whether the immortal as a genus of God, for immortal is the difference of animal, since of animals some are mortal, but some immortal, so that there is evidently an error, for the difference is not the genus of anything. But that this is true is evident, for no difference signifies what a thing is, but rather of what quality it is, as pedestrian and biped. Also, whether difference is placed in genus, as that the odd is that which is number, since the odd is a difference, not a species of number. Neither does difference seem to partake of genus, for everything which partakes of the genus is either species or individual, but difference is neither species nor individual. Wherefore, clearly difference does not partake of genus, so that neither would the odd be species, but difference, since it does not partake of genus. Moreover, whether genus is placed in the species, for instance, that conjunction is continuity, or that mixture is temperament, or, as Plato defines, that local motion is lation, since it is not necessary that conjunction should be continuity, but on the contrary, that continuity should be conjunction, since not everything which touches is continuous, but everything which is continuous touches. The like also occurs with the rest, for neither is all mixture temperament, as the mixture of dry things is not temperament, neither is all local change lation, since walking does not seem to be lation. For the latter is asserted generally of those which involuntarily change their place, as happens to inanimate natures. Nevertheless, it is evident that species is more widely predicated than genus in the cases advanced, when the contrary ought to occur. Again, whether difference is placed in species, as that the immortal is that which is God, for species will happen to be predicated either equally or of more, since difference is always predicated equally with, or to a greater extent than, species. Moreover, whether the genus is placed in the difference, as that colour is what concretes, or that number is the odd. Likewise, if the genus has been spoken of, as if it were difference, for it is possible that some one may adduce even a thesis of this kind, as that mixture is the difference of temperament, or local change the difference of lation. All such particulars, however, we must consider through the same, for places intercommunicate, since both the genus must necessarily be predicated more extensively than the difference, and must not partake of difference, but when it, genus, is thus assigned, neither of what have been mentioned can possibly occur, for it will be spoken of fewer things, and genus will partake of difference. Besides, if no difference of genera is predicated of the assigned species, neither will the genus be predicated. Thus, neither the odd nor the even is predicated of the soul, wherefore neither is number. Moreover, if species is prior naturally, and co-subverts the genus, it will not be genus, for the contrary appears to be true. Once more, if it is possible for species to leave the proposed genus or difference as to be moved, the soul, or the true and false opinion, neither of these named would be genus or difference, for genus and difference are apparently consequent, so long as there is species. Chapter 3. Of the proper constitution of genus and species. Moreover, we should observe whether what is laid down in the genus partakes or can partake of something contrary to genus, since the same thing will at the same time partake of contraries, as it, species, never leaves genus, but partakes, or is capable of partaking, of what is contrary. Besides, whether species communicates with anything which cannot altogether be present with those which are under genus, thus, if the soul partakes of life, but no number can possibly live, the soul would not be a species of number. Notice also whether the species is equivocal with the genus, employing for the investigation of the equivocal the elements before mentioned, for genus and species are synonymous. Since, however, there are many species of every genus, we must observe whether there may not be another species of the proposed genus, for if there is not, it is evident, in short, that the thing spoken of will not be genus. Likewise observe whether a person has proposed as genus that which is spoken of metaphorically, as that temperance is symphony, for every genus is properly predicated of species, but symphony is not properly predicated of temperance, but metaphorically, for all symphony is in sounds. Again, whether a thing be contrary to species, and this consideration is multifarious. First, indeed, whether in the same genus there is also a contrary when there is not a contrary to genus, for contraries must necessarily be in the same genus, if nothing is contrary to genus. If, however, there is anything contrary to genus, we must observe whether the contrary is in the contrary genus, since it is necessary that the contrary should be in the contrary, if anything is contrary to genus. Each of these, however, appears through induction. Moreover, if in short the contrary to species is in no genus, but is itself a genus, as the good, for if this is not in genus, neither will the contrary to this be in genus, but will be itself genus, as happens in the case of good and evil, since neither of these is in genus, but is each of them a genus. Further, whether both genus and species are contrary to a certain thing, and whether there is anything between some, but not between others. For if there is something between genera, there is also between species, and if between species, likewise between genera, as in virtue and vice, and justice and injustice, for there is something between each of these. To this it may be objected that there is nothing between health and disease, but that there is something between evil and good, or whether there is something between both the species and genera, yet not similarly, but between the one negatively, and between the other as a subject, for it is probable that something similarly intervenes between both, as between virtue and vice, justice and injustice, for there are intermediates between both according to negation. Further, when there is not a contrary to genus, we must observe not only whether the contrary is in the same genus, but also whether the medium is, for the media are in the same genus as the extremes, as for instance in white and black, for colour is both the genus of these and of all intermediate colours. An objection may lie that defect and excess are in the same genus, as both are in what is evil, but the moderate, which is a medium between these, is not in what is evil, but in what is good. Notice too whether the genus is contrary to a certain thing, but the species to nothing, as if the genus is contrary to a certain thing, the species is also, as virtue and vice, justice and injustice. Likewise, to one who considers other things, such a thing would appear evident. There is an objection in health and disease, for health simply is contrary to disease, yet a certain disease, being a species of disease, is not contrary to anything, e.g., a fever and ophthalmia, and every other disease. The subverter then must pay attention in so many respects, for if what have been mentioned are not inherent, the thing assigned is evidently not a genus, but the confirmer must regard them triply. First, whether the contrary to species is in the before named genus, when there is not a contrary to the genus, for if the contrary is in this, it is evident that the proposition is also. Next, whether the medium is in the above named genus, as in what the media are, the extremes also are. Lastly, if there be anything contrary to genus, we must notice whether the contrary also is in the contrary, since if it be, the proposed species is evidently in the proposed genus. Again, in cases and coordinates, both the subverter and confirmer must notice whether they are similarly consequent, since at the same time they are present, or are not present with one thing, and with all, as if justice is a certain science, what is justly is also scientifically done, and a just is a scientific man, but if something of these is not, neither is any of the rest. End of chapter 3 of book 4. Recording in memory of Mitchell Edwards.